guys, this is Chris from Wine Weirdos.
This is Joe Tall.
And Joe and I have kind of a special trip report to talk to you guys about today. We were luckily in London for business in January and had an opportunity to go to what was, at the time, the #2 ranked restaurant in the world.
Yeah, I'm not sure who ranks these restaurants, but I was told it was the #2 restaurant.
Well, I told you.
Yes.
The Fat Duck in Bray, Heston Blumenthal's restaurant.
Yes.
And it's a gastro... molecular, futuristic, gastronomy, awesome, interesting kind of place.
Yes.
So...
The first thing they did is they put this on the table, and they're like, "This is your menu. You take it home." It was actually fresh sealed and waxed at the time, and it's actually a printed menu, and that's their Fat Duck.
Yeah, they only do they only do tasting menus. There's like one, you just say, okay, I'm going to do the tasting
menu. Yeah, there's only one menu.
You choose your level of wine pairings, and I believe the wine pairing I did was 90 pounds, which at the time was like $200. And I believe the most expensive one that you guys might be able to see a list of the wines that were offered is a 850-pound premium wine tasting. So what's that, like $1,800? So yeah, pretty crazy. We started out with like a palate cleanser sort of
palate cleanser
thing.
Is what they call it. It's called the Lime Grove.
The Lime Grove,
which is nitro poached green tea and lime mousse.
And as with everything almost throughout the pairings, they prepared part of the table side. Like they would bring it to you, and then they would for this one they just did the powdering and
yes.
Oh no, this one they actually did the whole. They dropped it into like the nitroglycerin.
This is how they. Yeah, it's liquid nitrogen.
Liquid nitrogen, yes. Yeah. Nitroglycerin, what's
Nitroglycerin is explosive.
So that wouldn't have been good.
No, that wouldn't have been good.
Well, this was good. So
yes,
liquid nitrogen. And it froze it right there, and then they pulled it out, and then they told you to eat it within like 10 seconds.
Yes, because it'll melt.
Because before it starts to melt. And it obviously ended up being quite a unique texture, because it's obviously flash frozen on the outside, but in the middle it was still like a liquid center.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it was pretty interesting, and obviously kind of gave us the idea of what this type of restaurant was all about, and what we were in store for.
Moved on to the red cabbage gazpacho. Pommery grain mustard ice cream is what it actually was. It was called.
And that was another nitroglycerin frozen. Not the kind that blows up.
Liquid nitrogen.
Another liquid nitrogen creation, and this was like a mustard, and in a cold soup.
Yes, in a cold soup was gazpacho.
Oh.
Yep. And we moved on to the jelly of quail crayfish cream. This was the dish that kind of set the table.
So we had this smoky.
Well, first he showed up with a box of moss.
Moss.
That's all he put on the table. It was literally a box that was a box of moss, like actual growing green moss.
You could smell it. Smell like you're in the forest. Yeah.
And then there was two plastic those Listerine type tongue. Remember?
Oh yeah.
That was sitting on that, and he said he's like,
supposed to...
first you try this. This is your palate cleanser. It was actually like a Listerine tab.
Right. It dissolved on your tongue.
Yes, and it had an oak. The flavor was it? Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I want to say oaky or
oak. It was supposed to be of the tree.
Maple, maybe.
Yeah, because I believe there's truffle in this dish.
Right.
Yes.
It's this was the foresty item of the course. And then they brought out and then they poured the
oak moss. Yeah.
Right. And they poured, what did they pour over? Like dried ice, basically.
Liquid nitrogen.
That.
They poured, and it oozes over the table like this, and you're just kind of like, what's going on?
It's creating the steam.
And then it's a 5-layer parfait that you'll see in the photo and the video. It's chicken liver parfait, oak moss, and a truffle toast was also accompanied.
Truffle toast.
Yeah, that was amazing.
It's just
this teeny little...
This thing was very, very forest floor, sort of I mean, it basically tasted as if you had just picked something from wild mushrooms and whatnot. To me, it's not my favorite thing, which is interesting, by the way. I don't really like very earthy. I don't really like mushrooms very much. I'm not into the earthy flavors. So I appreciated it for the freshness, but to me, it wasn't really my style of food. But the intricacy of a 5-layer, basically I don't know, a soup or a stew.
Yeah, it was 5 layers too. I mean, you shot through. It was all these perfect. This was cool. Actually paired with the Riesling. This is when you've got your first wine.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. That's right. Yeah, so I had the Riesling here, and then I got
Peter Lehman Riesling Reserve, Eden Valley, South Australia.
There you go. Okay, so we had our oak moss fun. And
we moved on to the roast foie gras.
Foie gras.
Yes. This is what was paired with the Hungarian one.
Right, this is my Hungarian deliciousness.
Rhubarb braised kombu and crab biscuit.
Okay, so this one, I remember, like, this was a very delicate dish, really. Yes. Like, there was, like, all these little, like, almost, like, paper-thin creations that, like, just supplied almost, like, the flavor without even really, like, a texture to them. Because you guys can see in the photo, like, almost this, like, filtered paper that, like, was on both underneath and then, like, a crisp part that stick through the foie gras.
It was a little bit sweet.
Right. We had the jelly on the side. Yeah. Some delicious wine that went with this. Obviously, you guys can see the meticulousness of the preparation on the plate here with the drops, and just the presentation was pretty amazing on this dish.
Now, every single dish they came, they explained it all, how it was cooked, what it was made of, the different ingredients. It was fabulous. Although this next dish is the one they showed up.
This one they refused to tell us about.
They refused to tell us about. They did the opposite. They actually literally say, "We're not going to tell you about this. You're just gonna." You're just going to go through this experience.
There were a couple that were that way, where they
did
like
the opposite.
Yeah, but this one, I would say this is my favorite dish.
This was the mock turtle soup, which had actually a little bit of...
if anybody knows, there's a reference to the Mad Hatter in this, right? Like, it's from the story.
Yes.
And they kind of, like, this is like Chef Blumenthal's sort of... His way of doing cuisine is, like, thinking about something that, like, was a comfort food to him maybe when he was young, or, like, even just an idea, like, he liked the story when he was a kid, and, like... I was going to create like a mock turtle soup. Nobody's actually ever really made one before. This thing, the presentation on this was amazing. They just showed up with
2 teacups,
right, and then like a bowl that like had some hard ingredients in it, and there was no soup.
No.
And then you like poured water,
hot water on this medallion that would look like a pocket watch.
Right,
that's from the story.
From the story,
like Alice in Wonderland, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And then it dissolved and created this like almost a tea, or I mean they called it a tea, but it was a broth.
It was the broth.
And then we were supposed to take it from our teacup and we poured it into our bowl.
You poured it into your bowl, and they're like, "Don't drink it. That's your soup."
Right. And then it mixed in with what was in the bowl was basically like a baby quail egg.
Yeah.
A bunch of like fresh bacon.
Yep.
And then this like gold flakes.
Yep.
And you guys can see those in the photo. Like here, the gold flakes are very noticeable, and they were, they didn't really have that much taste to them, but they were definitely edible and delicious. And then a few like microgreens basically on top of that. The broth was so good. I can't imagine how they basically like flash froze the ingredients that came into the broth into that medallion type of thing, so that you could dissolve it right in there within like 30 seconds or less. The soup was delicious. Mock turtle soup. And Mad Hatter tea.
Yep. And then this was the most interesting, like you said, the 5 senses thing earlier.
Right. This was the most, like, the funnest part about this dish was watching other people in the restaurant once we had already experienced it.
I was actually happy we were there early because we were first. They served us first because we were 2. There was a 4 top.
Yeah.
At the same time, and obviously the 4 people were slower. They served us first.
Right, and we got to kind of like have ours,
and then watch the experience.
There's people from all over the world coming to visit this place, and like nobody really knew what to expect. Yeah. Most people would probably never go more than one time.
There had to be like close to 5 different languages going on at the same time, like all around us.
So they brought this thing out on like a big tray and set it in the center of the table.
They first put seashells in front of us.
The seashells.
And the seashells had earbuds, like iTunes earbuds,
right? Like you
coming
knew that
out
like
of the shell.
It was like a music player, basically.
Yes, and he said, "Put it on."
Right,
and you put it on, and it sounds like the ocean.
Right, you're listening to like soothing sounds of the sea.
Yeah, like seagulls chiming and whatever, and the waves crashing.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're just sitting there in a restaurant, in a tie and a jacket, like and everybody else is looking at us like, "What the is he? What's going on?" And and
then they brought out like this. Basically like a sand sculpture sort of looking thing. It had a foam on top. It had the glass partition.
Yep.
It was like, it didn't really look like something you would eat off of.
Yep.
But nevertheless, they told us to go ahead and enjoy it. They didn't want to tell us too much about this.
No.
I paired this with a sake pairing.
Yes, it was a sake
which was quite interesting.
Well, because it was sushi.
It ended up being a seafood dish,
there was 3 different sushis within the dish.
Right, there was like a yellowtail.
I believe it was tapioca dust that creates the
That's
sand.
how they created this sand, exactly. It was edible sand.
You can see in the picture.
Salty, sea-type dishes.
With earphones on the whole time, and Chris and I looking at each other like, what?
But it was delicious.
Yeah, it was absolutely
And lots of seafood, which is always really fresh and delicious, and yeah.
So that takes us about halfway through the menu.
All right, well, I hope you guys stick around for the second half of our Fat Duck Taste trip report here, and see you guys soon. This is Joe and Chris for One Weirdos.
For part 2.